Finally. Okay, so welcome everyone to a new episode of Say Again with me, Amrita Tripathi. I'm in conversation today with the wonderful Mallika Dua. We've had no technical glitches whatsoever. We are so excited.
None at all.
There's been no issues getting this show on the road. Thank you for all of the permutations and combinations, though. I really appreciate it. Mallika, you're an actor. You are, I think for many of us, you're the voice of a generation. I don't know how you feel about that, how you feel about being a millennial. I'm an elder millennial, so I'm very happy to be in your orbit somewhere. But on this podcast, I basically talk to thought leaders, change makers, and one is a success story, right? Everyone loves a good success story. Everyone loves hearing inspiring journeys. But I'd also love to understand a little bit more about what goes on behind the scenes. How do you navigate things when things aren't, all coming up roses and stuff? So we're going to keep this as conversational, as informal as possible. There's no gotcha moment. I'm not going to be trying to put you on the spot, but as much as you want to share, let me start by asking you what success means to you. And when did you have this moment, if at all, in your career so far that you were like, wow, I've made it?
Oh, wow. What a question. Wow. This I made it moment actually just happened in the initial period of, my career. After that, imposter syndrome takes over and you are constantly second guessing yourself. You're in, like, everything is just self-doubt after that. And, once you really come in the hands of an audience or in the hands of an agent or a brand representative or anything that has not actually nurtured you to become the artist that you are, that was not part of your initial journey. The whole I've made it narrative kind of takes a break. Unless you're a thriving, unchecked narcissist, which I really wish I was. But I think for me, like, I have made it kind of happened when I fully moved to Mumbai and a lot of famous people started getting in touch with me to work with me and things like that. And I think financially, when I could give money home, that's when I really, really felt empowered. Because for me, I had grown up in a house, with a very, very celebrated public figure. But I was also very aware that money is very weird. Sometimes there is money, sometimes there just isn't any, and there's waiting for gigs and there's all of that stuff. So I wasn't very like bedazzled by this world of being known and whatever. I was like, paise kama rahe ho to theek hai. That was number one in my list. And then of course being recognized and loved by people. And I think a micro moment of that happened when my first video went viral and I went to Khan Market and this guy, he was in this nice black leather jacket and I was like, wow, ye to bada cute hai. And we just crossed and he called out to me, he goes, hey, you're that girl from that video, right? I'm like, ye bhi hota hai? I was like, oh wow, yeah, that's me. So I think that those two are the moments.
That's very cool. And the fact that you went to Mumbai, making it on your own in an industry it's a pretty tricky one to navigate, especially as a young person. So, firstly, hats off to you. I'm so glad you recognized that you had that moment and, built from there. Because you're right, imposter syndrome is everywhere, right? I mean, we all have it at various stages and phases. I do want to ask if you've ever felt that there were stereotypes that you had to fight to get out of. I mean, I know I've been watching some of your interviews and, when you've been on podcasts and stuff. And I know that, at one point, I think you really also didn't want to be known only as a comedian or be sort of typeset or boxed into a role. But I suppose even taking one step back from that, did you ever feel that there were stereotypes you had to kind of dismantle for other people in this industry?
Yeah, constantly. And both externally and internally behind the scenes. The stereotype of a difficult woman, that she's very demanding, she's very particular, hence she's difficult. And that stereotype just was something that I was battling and I still continue to battle. But now I, as an adult, understand that as a woman, this is not going to leave you. If you have been raised to expect the best, demand the best, and why shouldn't you? It's going to happen. I'm just somehow not a very compliant woman in that sense. And even if I try my best, I say something or something happens where, I can't conceal this, what do you say, the autonomy that I have with respect to everything. And on screen, of course, the stereotype of, and let's not use the word blame, but I guess I don't know, I would credit myself equally for the stereotyping, because that's what, see, when you are giving something to an audience and they're lapping it up, then you're giving more of that to them, right? And then outside people are coming to you for the same thing and they're paying you money to do that exact same thing. So after a point, artistic experimentation, etc., can be done on your own time. But to be fair, I needed to make money and I didn't have the guts or the gumption to, say that, Acha, I'm not going to do anything now for a while. And, I'm going back to school or whatever. There was no such situation. And I think I was just too surprised by the success and the recognition that came my way, that I was never in my wildest dreams would I think ki main ye nahi karungi, or I will not do this or whatever. And I liked I liked that whatever I was doing was making people happy. I've realized that, no matter who you are as an artist, people will talk shit. They'll say this about Shah Rukh Khan also. They'll say, who the hell am I? Right? So after a point, you have to separate that noise and you have to give dignity to your work. That you may think that this is, Array, she does this weird accent only, or she does this and that and blah, blah. I'm like, you have to give dignity to work, whatever that work may be. And sure, you must expand as an artist and you must, have various skills in your bag. But that doesn't mean that you constantly like talk down to yourself and say that, Array, this is your shtick and what the hell. Every comedian has a shtick, and that's all right, I feel. But yeah, I think for me, the behind the scenes stereotypes have been harder, and just keeping up images and, like being woke on social media is a very slippery slope, you know. So I think just coming out as I am, with the flaws, with everything, that's been the real journey for me. Because there's also a positive stereotype, right? That they're like, oh, you're such a radical feminist. How can you not blah, 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 blah? And I'm like, please. Like, and I think that's a lesson for everybody. That, in how you conduct yourself on the internet, how carried away you get, what image is serving you and what image are you fueling, and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, and of course, now we're like so many cycles into, social media's evolution. At the start, it was something that took everyone by surprise, right? Because there was a time, especially for anyone young listening to this, believe it or not, we used to be very sincerely going on social media and just being, whereas now, everything is a performance, right? So I feel like you're right, that applies to a lot of people. So when you say behind the scenes stereotypes, you feel that there are projections on you that you have also kicked off? Like, so tell me a little bit about this.
There's two things. One is that, I came onto the scene and very quickly I had a rise, right? And by association with my father, there was all of this expectation out of me that, oh my God, she must be everything and more. And sure, I may be, maybe not in that moment, So there was a lot of like expectation that you need to be the next this person, the next that person, produce these shows, do this, do that. And these things happen and they sound cute when you say it to another person. But like, even if you read someone's Wikipedia page, it's a journey of years, 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 right? That you see. It's not instant. But with great attention comes great pressure also. And I think I just wasn't ready for the kind of anxiety that I would. Like, I never had anxiety in my life in this way. It's only when I came to Bombay, I was diagnosed and I started medicating for it. And because the stakes just became so high, the minute you get a lot of things, you fear losing all of those things at every point. Um, and for me, I think when I am afraid or when I am uncomfortable, it comes out as like being defensive, and trying to protect myself. And in protecting yourself, you could end up disappointing some people, rubbing people off the wrong way. Also, I think the biggest learning in my case, I would say, is that there was absolutely no blueprint of how to do this career, because I was literally one of the first people who had to do this career, right? There was no blueprint, there was no right or wrong. It's only when you, and I luckily did not have to struggle, right, in this industry to be known. I did one video and I managed to reach people and become the buzzword or whatever. But in that, what happens is you don't learn any of the lessons in private. All your lessons, all your mistakes, everything is in full public view. So, your cold feet, your strides, all of it is there for everyone to see. And now, if you ask me, so many years later, so many creators, so many people come to me for advice. And now I have all of this wisdom to give them that no one gave me. At that point, it was just warnings, or just what do you say? Like, we told, like, I was never that kid. If you tell me not to do something, I won't do it. Right? And you also understand that you may have a set of values, but if your industry has a completely different set of values, you have to find a middle ground. So I guess, yeah, that's been my learning, I would say, that that you, like, if you want to completely express who you are, then you have to accept that it's going to come at a cost, which I've always seen with my father, and he was always very brave about it, and he was okay to go through the consequences of it till his very last day on the planet. But in my case, this industry is different. You can't be completely you can be anything you want, actually, but then you have to understand that it's transactional, and perception is important, and all of these 100 things. And yeah, I think the learning has been that it's like living in a joint family. You may not like everyone, but you have to tolerate each other and make sure that everyone has something nice to say about you, which is something I never cared about in my life. And even now, principally, I do not care about it. But objectively, I'm very aware of it. And if you are a people pleaser, then though you are guaranteed success here.
Oh, really?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
I would never
have guessed afford to not be a people pleaser at a, if you're some big production house head or whatever, then you can. Everyone here has to be charming, pleasing, and in every field, I would say, to some extent. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, but of course, people pleasing with a certain kind of personality can be it just sets you up for disaster, though, especially I think for women. I heard you, one of your conversations talking about how you wish more women were angry, or had realized that it's good sometimes to be angry, right? To be able to express your anger. I think there's certain things that conditioning wise, we're taught to mask as we grow up, and it's fascinating to hear you speak, because it's a very different kind of career trajectory. So, for example, I started out in journalism. I had the great good fortune of crossing paths with Mallika Dua, at Network 18 back in the day. And of course, he was, I will always remember, he was in the green room once and telling the folks in the green room, how old I am. Her mother was my batchmate in our masters. And I was like, oh my God. But he's quite that was another, era of journalism, right? I mean, I feel like the journalists from his generation showed us so many things. But one of the things I realized is that, if you're going to be a public personality in any way, there are slightly different standards for women and men. I think that's changing a little bit now, but not fast enough. I think a lot of women do struggle with, even advocating for themselves in their career. So another thing you said, which I found, right now, what you're saying about, you said not having the guts or gumption, to say I'm not going to take on work for a while. But guts and gumption are actually adjectives I would use for you. I feel like just seeing your career, seeing you grow, seeing you thrive, listening to you talk, I think that you're one of the gutsiest people with the most gumption that I've seen. So hats off to you for that.
Guts, I agree. Gumption, I don't know.
But is it something that, has come to you naturally in that sense? Like you've always been fairly confident. If you take us through a little bit of, even as a child, were you able to perform in public very easily? And is that something that has stood you in good stead? Or do you find that confidence is something you've had to build and grow and, along with a thick skin, given the industry you're in?
I've had the confidence to perform because I think I saw my parents and they really encouraged us to do the same. And having someone at home who you aspire to be like is convenient. And yeah, and I always wanted to be on stage and kill it on stage and just be that person. I was not confident off stage. I was very self-conscious, and especially post-puberty, so it was, it's been a whole journey and it continues till today. And confidence is also such a strange thing, right? It's external our whole life till we realize that it has to just be internal. And especially if you're in a public facing profession, then your confidence kind of relies on feedback. So my confidence has really, now it dwindles a lot. So if I put something out and it doesn't get whatever engagement, I'm underconfident for the next. I mean, I guess I'm confident in the broader sense ki theek hai, stand by yourself and whatever. But I have to say, just knowing like the parents I had, no, all my confidence came from there. That's where it came from, because the way they raised us, the way they made us feel about ourselves, no matter what was happening in school or in the world outside, at home we were just made to feel very good about ourselves, and not in a way ki tum to raja beta ho, tum to kuch galat nahi kar sakte. But I think just knowing that their presence is there in the world makes you confident that you will do the right thing or that you'll be okay. A lot of confidence is also about knowing you'll be okay, you know? So I would say that I have lost a huge chunk of my confidence after I lost them. And every day I try and talk to myself and rebuild it and whatever. But, and I guess that's what adulthood is after a point. But I realized that I got a lot of my sense of safety in the world and confidence in the world because of them. Yeah. So I think now my relationship with public performance and confidence is that I have enough muscle memory and practice to be able to do it. But I think to be spontaneous now, it takes an effort. It does. And I know that it's a journey and it'll get better, obviously. Hardly been like a few years. But yeah, like I guess being loved being loved gives you a lot of confidence, right? So I guess the source of the purest, deepest, richest love in your life, when it no longer is there, it obviously, and you lose your grounding in the world. You don't know how do you, like, you lose your grip on life.
Yeah.
And of course, as an adult, like, you have bills to pay, taxes, this, that. So you do certain things. But your overall relationship with life just changes completely.
Yeah.
You're a stranger in the world for a while. I mean, when you're not seeped in nostalgia, that is. So yeah, my confidence is, okay, you can call me on set and I'll kill it. But that thing, that girl who used to just sit at home and just pick up her phone and start doing random things, that carefreeness, that masti, that sense of fun would often come from knowing that I'm safe. And I have someone who I can bounce ideas of, or who makes me want to crack jokes and things like that. So that was social media confidence. Then the other kind of confidence is a quiet confidence.
So, when you're talking about confidence and this feeling of safety, that, it's not something in the moment, right? I feel like firstly, I'm very sorry that you lost your parents. And I know that, you've spoken about this. Actually, I had your sister on and we were talking a little bit about, she said this beautiful thing about how loss is a contract we make with life. And I think this other phrase she said, which really stayed with me, was that you can't avoid death, right? Like it's holding your hand throughout your life. And I was just thinking, these are things we're not equipped, we're not prepared for. This is probably the worst thing that can happen, losing someone you love so much. And I know you've spoken about this also, and said it's, there's no way to tie this in a bow and say I'm going to feel less, grief is going to go away, or I'm and in a way we keep our loved ones alive, right? By thinking about them, I think grief is really a sign of how much we've loved. So I am very sorry for your loss, and I'm really glad you have each other, because your sister also sounds super smart and she knows all of these things. But just coming back to the fact that you're so loved by these people so unconditionally. And as you said, not in a way that really spoils you, like I think you said Raja Beta, not that kind of thing, but it's a foundation that I think sometimes we don't realize we have, until all of a sudden it's gone. Can you take me through a little bit about, what that meant for you in terms of coming? It's not that, childhood and growing up is ever like a bed of roses either. Like, of course, it's not that, even with this sort of nostalgia tint we might put on it. Of course, our parents also, they're doing the best they can, but they make mistakes, and there might be things we might be mad at them for still, including leaving. But I wonder if you've thought about a little bit more, like, while they were here, and as you were doing this, by the way, I'm sure for your parents, and certainly for our parents' generation, your career was kind of crazy, right? It's like you decided you're going to carve out a new, it was all.
There was a whole thing about it. Like when I was planning to move to Bombay, my dad's like, "Are you sure you need to move? Why don't you just move within your ad agency to the Bombay office and then do auditions and figure out what you want to do and all that?" And then I was like, "Nahi, Papa, aise nahi hoga. Matlab, you can't manage it." And then I had a cousin who lived in Mumbai. And he said ki Shivani ke saath reh lo, and give it 6 months. And if if it doesn't work, come back home. So I told him, I said, dude, you are the OG freelancer, first of all. But secondly, if I was getting married, if this was like a marriage, would you say that give it 6 months and come back if it doesn't work? I mean, knowing him, he probably would say that.
Yeah.
I'm like, but do you get it? Like, so I was like, no, this is like a great opportunity, and this is my work. And I will give it as much time as it needs, And
Yeah.
I'll continue to give it time, time and rent. And but I guess being loved by such parents, being raised by such parents. So one thing I realize is, and I say this very consciously, that after speaking to a lot of people and knowing about their relationship with their parents, with their family, Bakul and I, we agree on one thing. We're like, our parents are there for us in their absence, even more than a lot of people's parents are there for them in their presence, And we had a very accomplished and celebrated father, right? But he was never too busy to just play and just be fun and funny and, make life lighter. There was never a moment where my father didn't have time for me. I remember he would take me to the studio, and, if he had he really was a dad first and then everything else second, and he would always, he's like, I always had a father's heart. I always had a father's heart, and I wanted children. And I don't hear too many men saying that.
Yeah.
And he was really like an incredible father, in the sense that always there, always giving courage, of course, always providing, and always giving wisdom when needed, making light of the situation when needed. And I think the greatest thing they gave us was safety, that if anything ever goes wrong, we are the first people you tell.
Yeah.
That's how safe our house was, like we could literally do anything and we'd be at fault, but we would first tell our parents. There was just so much freedom that we'd come running back to them. There was never any no for anything. Of course, when you're growing up and your mom is strict and all of that is there, they were very particular about the values that they wanted to give us. And, the kind of people they wanted us to be. But there was just so much freedom. And in fact, I was discussing this in therapy the other day. I was like, I just don't have, like my parents never sat and taught me ki aise kaam karo, aise kaam karo. They were just living their lives and I was observing them. So what I have observed from my parents is that, oh, you have to be very good at your job and you have to also have a life outside of it. And my mom worked half day and my dad was a freelancer. So there was a lot of waiting for gigs or like switching gigs. And I'm like, that's what I have imbibed. Now, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not a hustler. I'm not any of these things. And unfortunately, I don't even want to be, but I have to be. Right? Because I'm not a trust fund baby. So मैं क्या करूं?
Yeah, that's annoying.
That's really
come to terms.
Amrita, सारी problem ही तो वहीं से आ रही है. So anyway, so yeah, I was discussing this and I was like, because my parents never said ki be like us or be like this or be like that.
Yeah.
My mom, despite being a topper, doctor, whatever, of course she would tell me ki tumhare marks kyun nahi aa rahe and all that. But again, no one ever forced me to do anything. And that was the kind of, in a nutshell, that was our life. It was just full of love, a lot of nurturing, a lot of safety. Of course, a lot of that came with too much anxiety also, because when you have something so precious, you fear losing it all the time. So at a certain age, when I realized that my parents are not immortal, that became the narrative of my life, just constantly being anxious for them. It's really weird. You can call it soul connection or whatever, but my heart used to like bleed for them even when they were alive. Even when I had to leave my house for like 3 days for Bombay or something, there was some connection. It was like, and my life plan. So my sister, she was dating my now brother-in-law for many, many years, and then they got married, and then she moved to Mumbai first and now to Bangalore, and she's been away for a couple of years. But my plan was that I will live with my parents, and I truly believed in my head that I was like, the reason, Mallika, you don't get boyfriends like that, like everyone just finds someone and you don't, is because not everyone has such epic parents. They are your friends. Like, you like to hang with them and you like to be with them and whatever. So that was my life plan. It's a very stupid life plan.
No, it's not very sweet.
In the sense, it's not a reliable one. But yeah, that was the plan. So I think now coming back to confidence, confidence in oneself is decent, that I will survive situations. But that's not the kind of confidence you want, You just want the confidence that everything is okay.
Yeah.
You don't want the confidence that, oh, if everything goes wrong, I will survive it. Nahi chahiye.
Yeah. And the surviving is not the point. I feel like, sometimes people don't realize that. It's kind of, when you lose someone like a parent, I feel like it just makes you realize like nothing is steady, right? Like there's actually nothing you can take for granted. And it takes a long time to come back to thinking like, okay, I'm going to get on with day-to-day stuff. I feel like when I lost my dad,
and when you're cynical like me, you're just like I was always a little cynical and a little grumpy in life. And I had amazing parents who just weren't like that. So, they balance it out. They cancel.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
So this this probably was the hardest phase in your life. I'm guessing, right? When your parents fell sick and then passed away.
Yeah,
so
nothing. I mean, the phases before that, there could have been one or two things that felt hard, but nothing ever in my life has been this, we also lost my first cousin, the same first cousin who lived in Bombay.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
A month before mom. So it wasn't just like our family was wiped out. We lost my aunt before that. So in a very strange way, the loss has also been with home, with the city you call home, with the people. So, and then of course, there's the details of how things kind of happened in the second wave and what happened after that and whatever. And of course, you realize that, okay, you are strong enough to deal with everything and, you dealt with it and you fulfilled all your responsibilities. And And more often than not, you just have gratitude, keep, thank God you gave me these people. And thank God I got, this in my life.
Yeah.
But how to explain? It's just waking up every day and knowing that, you live in a world where these guys, like, you won't see them again.
Yeah.
So, and of course, you're an adult and you understand that everyone, like, if other adults have not lost their parents, they are tending to like ailing parents, or they are fearing losing their parents. It's a never ending thing. I call it love tax. You have to pay.
Love tax. Yeah.
And I pay like huge love tax.
I can see how you both are related, you and your sister. You have these perfect. But so tell me a little bit about, when you look at now, obviously your entire life and worldview was shaped by this awful loss. You go from being confident and fairly like gutsy and gumptiony, as I was saying earlier, pretty happy-go-lucky, at least the public persona, to your world losing its access in some way, right? Not to be dramatic, but so at this point, is it that you have your sister and you're able to try and make sense of it? Are you in therapy? I mean, when you're trying to navigate these kind of losses, and I only ask you because I've also noticed that you've not shied away about talking about mental health also, or grief, or grief, or bereavement. So just a little bit, if you can share with us, like, what has helped you get through? Who has been there for you? Was there any? I mean, not to tell me any names, but I feel like you also sometimes realize who doesn't matter anymore, right? I mean, for example, when I lost my father, I think for a year I just stopped meeting people, and then after about 2 years, I was like, oh, don't even miss some of them.
Yes.
People kind of show you who they are, right? When you're going through shit. So did you get a sense of like who's who in your life?
Yeah, in fact, I was saved by my friends. So my sister Bakul, she'd had her first child. He was like 2.5 to 3 months old when mama passed. And she was going through hell, right? She was tending to this baby, she was looking after her own life, and she came down when we lost mama. And she had to leave soon after because there was a little child, like, who had to be taken care of. And the way my school friends, my work friends stepped in, like, they coordinated with each other, and I was never alone. I was not alone for a second. Like, for that 1 month, um everyone was around. There were also moments I found myself laughing and being okay, for a second, even though I had a father downstairs who was just barely alive. Um, but my friends, my school friends, they really showed up, and my mother, no, she was a very loved person, very, very loved, tremendous like goodwill she had, and my friends, like, it's so strange. I was consoling some of my friends, so that's the kind of woman my mother was.
Yeah.
And everyone, like, even more school friends than anyone else, and helping in the most wonderful of ways. Like, there's a lot of logistic stuff that you have to do, right?
Yeah.
When passes.
Yeah.
And everyone offering to ease everything that they could. And I was completely vulnerable. There was just nothing, like, completely ravaged, but there was someone or the other, or at every point. And and I had my birthday soon after, and my friends actually organized like a trip for us. I never thought my birthday could be memorable, that birthday.
Yeah.
But they did. And these are my college friends and work friends. And I think that's when I realized that I really lucked out, with the friends I made. And Bakul was like, "वैसे तो सबसे लड़ती रहती है, but you've got such good friends." I was like, "Yeah, exactly. So I'm not wrong."
You're like well, and see there, chip off the old block. That's exactly like your parents' daughter in that sense. So these beautiful friendships.
Lots of friendships. And I also realized there were a lot of people, like, there were some people, I guess, from my field of work who I really idolized, but who were just absolutely terrible about it. Like, you realize that a lot of people who, you call them, like, we have agents and all, right? They don't care. For them, you are damaged goods now. You're not worth any revenue. So fuck that. You don't even deserve a call or a message or anything.
God.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you realize what matters and what doesn't. Unfortunately, money matters. So you still have to find ways to
figure out a way to earn. Yeah, I know. That see, such a grown up you are. I really feel like it's such a rite of passage, in a way. That's what someone told me. Like you just figure out a way to keep going. But of course, as we said, it's not just about surviving. It's about, finding the beautiful things you want to remember, keeping them alive. I do want to, just ask you a little bit about, you mentioned, so Delhi is no longer home for you, or do you come back and go, or is it a very complicated relationship now?
So, when right after we lost dad, this Omicron happened. So there was a lockdown and I ended up just being at home. I had given up my Bombay house during COVID, and I just found this weird peace in that house because suddenly all the medicines were gone, everything was gone. That house got restored to being my parents' house, and we had our caretaker of 30 years in the house, seen everything, ran the house the way my mother did and everything, and I developed a weird attachment to that house, and then that year, 2022, I ended up renovating bits of it. I felt like I had to protect it and I had to keep this house. There was this narrative that this house may have bled a lot internally, but I'm going to just stop the bleed wherever I can. And I got obsessed with making it beautiful and doing all sorts of things. And I would spend more time in Delhi than Bombay, those 1.5 years. And Bakul could never understand how, because for her it was too painful to come back to this house. And I was like, for me, it's too painful to not live in this house. And I think that comes from, like, right after we lost mom, I told my dad, I said, can we please leave? Can we please leave this place? He's like, why? And I said, because everything here reminds me of her. And, in his feeble voice and his barely any energy, he said, then why would you want anyone else to have it? And somehow just hearing that got me through the next few months, And so I got very attached to Delhi. And I have been, though I've been paying rent in Mumbai as well. And but this year something happened. Our caretaker of 30 years, he suffered a stroke. And without him, the house can't really function. So he's in recovery, and I hope that he recovers, like, for himself, not for this house or anything. But I just spend a lot more time in Mumbai now. Because now, I think I was almost dependent on him, thinking that he's next to family and, yeah. So now I'm just trying to spend more time in Mumbai and not run away. Like the past 2-3 years, I've just been running away. The minute there's an inconvenience, catch a flight and bounce. Either go to Bangalore or go to Delhi, do this, do that. So just trying to figure out who the hell it is that I am now. Yeah.
Who the hell it is that you are and what it is that you want to do, presumably, given all of the different skill sets and the industry you've chosen.
I definitely want to have one source of income that's not tied to me being on camera. Sure. For sure. And I want that to be my biggest source of income. I don't know how that'll happen, but
manifesting apparently is a thing to do now.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I really appreciate you being so honest and open and authentic, which you always have been. But that brings me to ask you, how is it that you are able to be so honest and open and authentic in an industry that actually thrives on, and I keep saying industry, but let's say, you one thing that's been, coming to home to me as I do more and more of these chats is like, we're all performers now, right? Our social media is all curated in such a way that we show a certain side of our lives, right? What has given you that guts or gumption or courage or, that flair you've always had of, of course you play different characters and you've brought this into the, the mainstream lexicon, your different personas and, your different accents, but fundamentally even on an Instagram where I feel like everyone is still pretty polished and trying to show a different sort of very curated version of life. What is it about you and your personality you think that allows you to be so honest, open, and authentic about different things, including in this interview, let's say?
I think one is DNA, undeniably. Like, I'm my father's daughter. Literally, I've been raised by him. And anyone who knows him knows he only spoke what he wanted to speak, So it's just so inside me. Though my sister's not entirely like that, right? So somewhere I think it was also school and being misunderstood. Like I was not academically bright, okay? I was very good in other things. But if in school, growing up as a millennial, if you were not academically bright, like people were very nasty to you and you were really misunderstood. So I think at a very young age, I developed a sense of justice and right and wrong and wanting to speak my mind, no matter what. And many a times, though I inherited it from my dad, many times I'd stand up to him also, and it's also a defense response many times to just be this. But I don't know any other way to be honest. I think it's exhausting for me to, like, I'm probably not even good at embellishing shit and putting it out.
That would be exhausting. You're right. That would be exhausting.
Yeah, it's just not my thing.
Yeah.
And what happened was that I found an audience in this so-called authentic version of myself. And of course, I know that I would have had 10 times the audience if I was a more washed out version of who I am, but that's just not who I am now.
Yeah.
The trick is to figure out how to optimize and monetize who you are.
Yes. Optimize and monetize.
In today's world,
Yes. Yeah. I love how you have all the jargon down pat.
Yeah. And up to I feel even more protective of like my duaness. So I'm like, up to मैं करती रहूंगी जैसे मुझे रहना है.
The duaness. I still remember, for any of you watching or listening this, it was pre-pandemic. Mallika was at a giant lit fest in this country with a giant crowd waiting to see her. And a
fire hazard of a lit fest.
It was, they've changed the venue now, I have to say.
Yeah, thank God. Yeah.
But it was so funny because I still remember, because I was right at the back and I saw you on the big screen and you had a very, very well-known person in conversation with you who asked you something and you were literally like, you have not even done your homework. You haven't even bothered to figure something along these lines. Basically, you called him out for saying he didn't know anything about your work because he took for granted that, he just skimming through the headlines. He knew what you stand for. And I think you almost practically got like a standing ovation for just standing up for yourself and being like, listen, you should have the respect to check out my my body of work. And so young, I was so impressed with that. I was like, look at this. That is awesome. I hope you never lose that also, the courage of your convictions and, the power of your voice. And I feel like it is inspiring, I think, for not just younger women, but everyone across the spectrum. I do want to ask you a couple more questions. Is there a message you would have for a younger Mallika if there was anything you wish you'd known? The tips and tricks that have helped you optimize and monetize.
I would tell the younger Mallika ki spend too much time. Wait, this recording has stopped.
This recording better be going on.
Whatever. So anyway, aa jayega. Don't worry.
Please bless us, the gods of tech.
So if I had to give a message to the younger Mallika, I would tell her, definitely, I would tell her, don't pursue things just to be the best at them. Pursue them to get better at them, to practice, to do all of that. And I would also tell her that please understand everything is a game. So you have to, don't get so serious about it. Sometimes you need to play a character, even at work. And then I would tell her that it's a very, very, very small and incestuous world. So if you're choosing to be a freelancer, then तुम्हें किसी ना किसी से काम तो पड़ेगा ही दोबारा. Who you've crossed paths with once. And you'll have to learn to be a bit diplomatic in life. And I would tell her that the worst thing you can ever imagine, your greatest fear will come true and you will survive it. You will survive it. And you will survive it. Your greatest fear that you fear all the time, उससे आ जाओगे बाहर. Yeah. I think that's what I'd tell her.
I'm sure she's listening somewhere. So the final thoughts as we wind this chat down. Any 2 or 3 things you're grateful for today?
Just today?
No, throughout.
Okay. Number one, I'm grateful for who I was born to. Duh, that's like the biggest lottery of life. That sorts you out in every way possible.
Yeah.
The second thing I'm grateful for is, how to explain? I'm grateful for every body part of mine working, like literally that, you know. It's literally as simple as that. I'm very, very grateful for that each day. And the third thing I'm grateful for is having a nervous system that can feel a lot. I guess.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Say more.
Like, it's painful to be able to feel so much emotion and all, but it's also what makes you unique, right? It's also what gives you the eye to appreciate beauty, the heart to be able to love something. So yeah, I think the days, like, sometimes when you're really able to, what I mean is that I have the capacity to express my emotions. Yeah, that's what I mean. So if I'm very angry, I can express it. If I'm very sad, that also comes out. I'm very in touch with my emotions most of the times. Sometimes a lot of anxiety sits in your like stomach, and then it comes out as like a cry. But usually I'm on point with what I'm feeling and when I'm feeling. So I think that, because I see a lot of people who are not in touch with their emotions or always running away from them. And I guess that helps them. But I like that I'm really in touch with my emotions, that I'm very particular about therapy, about medication, about all of that. Of course, it comes from having my sister in my life, right? But I'm very open to it.
Yeah.
So
well, that's huge. I mean, I can also imagine a world where you have your sister, but still not be open to it, you know? So I think a lot of it is you as well.
Yeah.
No?
So I'm grateful for having that understanding that I'm relentlessly committed to my mental health. Yes. See, it really take time to come at a statement.
That is beautiful. Though. We'd say that again, though, because this is going to go up around, I think, right after Mental Health Day. Please tell me one more time. Say
grateful. Again. I'm grateful that I am relentlessly committed to my mental health. So, it doesn't help. My social media usage doesn't help it, but I'm committed to it in therapy, in other ways, exercise, constantly yapping about it, you know?
Which also is helpful to other people. Yeah. And I heard you say recently, is this true or is it still true that you are controlling how much time you spend on your phone?
Yeah, I'm failing. It's
okay, it's tough. Everything's on our phone, right? Like that's the thing.
But I have this app called Opal, and where you can just block these apps for a duration that you set. And then you can pick what kind of a block is it. Is it a medium or a high or a unbreakable block? So I've been doing that. So that's one good thing. And I get some work done when I do that. But otherwise it's terrible. It needs to be regulated. These are drugs.
Yeah, it's a very addictive thing. That's true.
So we have
designed to be, exactly. I think we have scope to do like hours and hours of chatting with you. I really appreciate you. I appreciate you as a human being for walking among us. I appreciate you as a human being. I love it. And thank you for, making this chat work despite everything. Fingers crossed still. I'm going to wait to download files before I actually say thank you finally. This audio stuck again. Oh my God. Anyway, at least you and I got to chat with each other, even if no one else gets to hear this. But thank you so much. And, good luck in everything. I hope that our paths cross again. And of course, keep shining. You're doing an amazing job being yourself. As are you. Bye. Bye.